right. So I have Stephanie Jackman here, founder and board chair of REAP. Welcome, Steph.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about REAP?
You bet. REAP stands for Respect for the Earth and All People, and we are a business association for locally sustainably operated businesses. We've got about 150 members in southern Alberta, and ranging everything from single-person home-based businesses to large corporations and 17 different industries. So it's a really diverse group and a really inspiring group to get to work with.
Awesome. And how long has REAP been going for?
This is our 11th year officially.
Wow. So over the course of those 11 years, I'm sure you've seen the rise and fall of and the advancement of a lot of organizations. Mm-hmm. And I guess the biggest question is, through all that in your experience, what do you see as being a conscious brand?
Mm-hmm. Well, a conscious brand from my side really is an organization that understands both the opportunity and the responsibility of living and operating from a place of awareness. So what I mean by that is really an understanding that we're all part of an ecosystem. We're all interdependent as humans and as organizations. And so as companies bring their product or service to market, it's really important that they understand what their place is in the world and how they can come to that work from a place of creating as much benefit as possible. And just make the most impact with what it is that they do and what they have to offer.
That's awesome. I like that word awareness, because awareness is such a first step. We don't know what we don't know.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Yeah. And what do you see, like when you use the word awareness, what do you see as one of the greatest roadblocks in organizations becoming conscious brands?
Mm-hmm. Well, you use that phrase, we don't know what we don't know. And that really is, I think, core to having a conscious brand is for the leadership to really understand that they need to be coming from a place of personal awareness if they're going to build that culture of awareness in their team and in their organization. And that is a tough thing to do, right? I mean, to be fully aware, making conscious and intentional choices as people in our lives, let alone in our businesses, and the impact that has when you have a bunch of people that are like-minded, bringing a product or service to market. It's not a minor thing, but it is super important. And so I think being able to support leaders in developing, cultivating their own awareness, and then coming from that authentic place is probably the biggest roadblock that I see on an ongoing basis.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I love about what you do at REAP there is in accordance with one of our guiding principles of, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go further, go together. And I really feel like REAP is this community of, aware and conscious business leaders, and just so inclusive and so accepting of meeting people where they're at and helping people and leaders, to use your word, on their journey of becoming better for the earth and all people.
Mm-hmm. I think it is a journey, and it's really important that we set high expectations for ourselves and that we strive to always be better, and yet at the same time that we're gentle with ourselves, because it really is about progress and not perfection. And when we take that attitude of being in it together and striving for progress instead of perfection, then it is more inclusive, right? Because we're not just all sitting around judging each other, but we're able to bring our best selves to the work and to go farther together, as you said.
Awesome. And then, so that kind of gentle and progress over perfection are a couple leadership traits that I would see as an organization becoming a conscious brand. Is there anything else that you would say, like what type of leadership's required for conscious brands?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, courage certainly is a very important leadership trait. We're really forced to stretch ourselves and to push ourselves and our teams to find new ways of doing things. I think the other thing is out there pioneering quite often as conscious brands. It's really important that we remain open to a variety of perspectives, and that we are really inclusive in how we do this work, because it's not linear.
It
and
definitely is not.
and it's really messy, right? And so the more people we can have weighing in on creative solutions and bringing that awareness beyond what any one individual can be responsible for, I think the better we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually talking to someone about that courage and that vulnerable curiosity that's required to be courageous, and creating conditions where it's safe to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you've seen a lot of those leaders and those businesses that have wanted to do all the right things, and have maybe stumbled once or twice in getting off the ground. Yeah,
for sure. Stumbling is all part of it. I'm a big believer that we don't learn nearly as much when we're successful.
It's true. Or if we think we're successful.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was just going to say there's a great adage that I had heard recently that said the melody of the brook comes from the obstructions, and I really like that. That resonated with me.
Okay, so here's a question, Steph. Where are the obstructions in your life that are creating the melody?
That's a good question. I think, from my standpoint, it's always been about trying to figure out how to get more people bought into this vision of hopefully every business becoming a conscious brand. And getting people on board with that is challenging, because people are at different places and they use different language to describe these things. And so being able to communicate authentically and make real connections with people where they're at, always a challenge. It's always very interesting, and it's an opportunity. And I think it's very rewarding work, but it is always a challenge as well, particularly as we get more of us doing this work and coming together and trying to break into what I would call a more mainstream audience, and get just more critical mass and more momentum building, or conversations, I think, get more and more interesting and more challenging at the same time, because now you're not always talking to people that use your language or that see the world the way you do.
Yeah, well, I think the really good point there is meeting people where they're at. And I know we've at our conscious brands, we've never really got on the soapbox of sustainability, but really worked with those leaders that already understood it and helped them to go further. Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing this new wave of people that are very curious, and to kind of nurture that curiosity is really important, to meet them where they're at and not judge them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so what advice would you give newer emerging entrepreneurs that want to become conscious brands, or even if maybe it's not emerging entrepreneurs, it's organizations that want to shift into that role of becoming a conscious brand?
Mm-hmm. I like what you said before about curious vulnerability. It's that's really key, and I think we come to it as humans, as businesses, from that place of curiosity and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. That would go a great way to building more conscious brands in the world. It's not easy to be vulnerable, and I think that we've kind of conditioned ourselves to expect that leaders of business generally are not vulnerable, right? This is where the stiff upper lip and holding it all together, and we've got all the answers. And so that's a real paradigm shift to have people, I think, accepting and embracing that vulnerability and inviting it in. And so I would say, if you're wanting to get on this path, or you're already on the path and trying to better, that allowing yourself to be vulnerable and seeing that actually as a sign of strength and not weakness is critical to that advancement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the step that I've found, anyways, before becoming curiously vulnerable is something I call hosting myself, and it's part of the art of hosting process. But really, that idea of, like, how can I take care of myself before I go into a conversation, before I can,
Mm.
go into a meeting, so that I can be grounded and remain curiously vulnerable, and not try to hear the things that I want to hear, but really hear what's being said in conversations.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's really impactful. Good for you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Awesome. Any other kind of final tidbits that you want to add, Steph?
I just think that the work that you're doing is so amazing, and supporting this conversation and inviting people to consider what a conscious brand looks like, but also how we can become more conscious people, because it all starts with that, right? We can't have
Mhm.
organizations if we don't first have the people in the organizations coming from that place of um, awareness and curious vulnerability. So I'd like to thank you for your role in all of this, Rob. I think it's really inspiring and meaningful work that you're doing.
Well, thank you so much, Steph. And like attracts like, so there's a reason we're talking today. Awesome. Well, thanks again. And yeah, for those who want to become more conscious, become curiously vulnerable.
Right on.
Okay, Steph, take care.
Thanks. You too.
Thanks.